Greetings, YouTube, friends, subscribers, colleagues, scientists, like minded, always on the greater endeavor for the greater good of humanity and more. It's Friday, June the 12th, 2026. Welcome to another Shadowburn broadcast. Well, as promised, here we go. We're gonna discuss the film Disclosure Day. So, here we go. So you will know, I brought up some interesting data points within this past month. Knowing that we're going to lead up to this time, this film is coming out. Um, we got the scientists that have been coming up missing. A lot of weird, interesting things going on. So we're going to try to cover it all as quickly as possible and get straight to the point and do some comparisons with all the hype, the fear propaganda, the constant AI stuff, the constant AI content, all the religious stuff that's constantly getting pushed about it. It's just, one thing after another. The human psyche, the human consciousness just constantly keeps getting bombarded with all this constant, nonstop nonsense. So let's break it down and let's get into it. So basically, I went out and I saw the film yesterday. Was on June 11th, and I pretty much was analyzing everything that had to do with everything that's been brought up since day one, like what all the religious sectors have been saying, what all of the different opinions of the different communities have been saying, all the different AI context releases that have been going on about it. Um, Looking for anything where they're making any kind of references between government, the Department of War, like, just like anything that would just kind of click and fall into place with the reality of the real stuff that's actually going on in reality. And to be quite honest, I didn't see um, too many things in there that honestly made any references to anything. So let me tell you, like, actually what's going on. So there's a data point that I discussed a while back before this movie was released, that Steven Spielberg had released a video series called Taken. He released that in 2002, and it pretty much um, is a series describing about how there's like an interaction between different advanced races of beings that want to come down and basically procreate to get uh, to kind of integrate and see what the experience of the human life is all about. So essentially, all in all, that's essentially what it is at the end of the day for the Taken 2002 series. Now, if you watch that whole series all the way to the end, you'll have noticed that in the very end, they got to the point like where there's a discovery of like these artifacts, and these artifacts basically are a type of material that is able to sustain through some frequency a connection, a constant connection that is always able to remain in contact with these beings. Now, the film that was released yesterday that I watched, which was the Disclosure Day film, um, it it first of all, it is nothing like what everybody has been building up all this hype about. Like, "Oh, it's gonna make people forget about religion. Oh, it's gonna make people come after the ETs or these beings for love. Oh, it's gonna do this. Oh, it's gonna do that." No, it's actually it's almost like it's a continuation of Steven Spielberg's Taken series, with just more, updated content for the times that we're in today. Um, in fact, like, if you watch the Taken 2002 series, a lot of the scenes in movies, including, like, the music and the sound effects, a lot of that was taken from that series, and it was pushed into the 2000 well, into the Disclosure Day film itself. So, um, if you haven't seen it, I'd probably go back, watch that before watching the Disclosure Day, and then you'll kinda understand and see where I'm coming from, and you'll be able to do the pattern matching, so to say, and then just kinda see, like, how they kinda crafted everything together. It should just click into place and be very straightforward. Now, when they were touching on, points that had to do with, like, religion, there was no point in the movie, like, where they were getting people to, like, forget about their religion and don't believe in God. There was none of that going on, absolutely nothing. In fact, and most of the religious, things, that were kinda like, played out in the film, nobody was losing their faith in God, and for those that still believed in God, they still, followed the principles of God and, they were not swayed in any kind of way. In fact, there was nothing that had anything to do in that movie that had anything to do with, um, "Oh, I need to challenge my faith." There was nothing like that at all. Um, it was quite simply, um, you know, yeah, there's a possibility that, other things exist, you know? Where they come from, they don't know. And honestly, let's be realistic here. All you see pumped in social media, since the very beginning of time, over and over and over again, is nothing but nonstop repetitive patterns of the same playbook over and over and over and over again. "Oh, it's the Greys." "Oh, it's Craft, it's Orb, it's the same thing, and even since the days of, like, when Spielberg's film, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, all that kinda stuff, it's all coming out of the same playbooks, you know? So, let's talk about a couple of other things um, that were kinda illustrated, in the film. One, in spirituality, in religion, there's these things, that we call, like, possession, walk-ins, um, things of this nature. So, in there, they have, well, first, let's do a little bit of the ancient history analysis, right? So everybody, I'm sure, may or may not be familiar with Solomon, like Solomon, Philosopher's Stone, all that, predating ancient times, all that, Atlantis, Lemuria, like all these different advanced beings, whatever, right? With these stones, they could basically do anything. They can control the elements, they can control, um, earth, wind, fire, water, basically things that, appear to be something that's like magic, mystical stuff. Um, and honestly, it's all about, recreating illusions, right? And making you see things that aren't there, right? But there is another aspect of that, with the Philosopher's Stone, like where, um, somebody could um, kind of possess or take over somebody else, you know, if they can make that active connection with them. So these things like the Philosopher's Stone, if you really do like a deep dive into the ancient history of kind of like how the Philosopher's Stone is actually created, it's actually what's been written about it is in order to make the actual Philosopher's Stone, it requires like the human soul, right? So there's a lot of things they don't talk about and they don't illustrate in there, and they don't even talk about how um, uh, these devices actually work or how they're created. But when you see these materials that they actually have, high level speaking here, um, they're essentially what we would call the Philosopher's Stone, right? And uh, there's not like some human being that's, like some supreme being or something that's got some kind of power. No, what it is somebody is basically getting the equivalent of a Philosopher's Stone, and then they're able to do some things with it, you know, um, creating some of that like mysticism. So, you know, it's like no matter how far you go back into the ancient times and you listen to the ancient history or read the ancient texts and you look at those things regarding that stuff, you see that, oh, there's the ancient version, there's the modern day version, and now like we're in 2026 and they're coming up with all this extra stuff. There's like, oh, let's just create a more advanced version of the Philosopher's Stone, and then, create some things based on that. And that's basically where this whole premise has went. So, um, if we had to honestly think, right, like what are we seeing? What's going on with like all this disclosure stuff, right? At the end of the day, you know, there are actual things that do exist in reality, right? And there are a lot of things that they put breadcrumbs out there for, like data points, small like leaks, this and that, or what have you. But at the end of the day, there are a lot of things going on, and they've got people like living in a certain type of bubble and they don't want to pop that bubble. But I think they try to soft disclose as much as they can. Everybody's trying to be the expert. Everybody wants to be the first to claim something to some kind of fame for something. I mean, like we're living in social media land and everybody is, all about the views and the clicks and the clickbait, titles and everything else. Um, the film itself is nothing more, in my opinion, other than it's just a repeat, a wash, rinse, repeat of everything everybody's already seen and everybody already knows. It's just a more enhanced, heightened, um, modern day film to kind of go with the times. Um, if you had to say, does it have anything to do with like reality and like what we're experiencing and seeing today with all these different upticks with everything? No, it doesn't. Um, if anything, it just puts more of this awareness that, yeah, you have like government officials that, um, know things and try to cover things up. But I mean, dude, it's the same story. It's the same story as it's always been. Yeah, everybody already knows all these things. Yeah, it's all the same stuff or whatever. But in this film, it's like, oh well, we just have an epiphany, okay, and somebody that's like a freaking Edward Snowden or something, just happens to, get a bunch of data and then just all of a sudden pump it out over some news broadcast. And then, oh my God, does that do anything special? No, it didn't at the end of the day. It just basically just said, yeah, we're just confirming what everybody already knows. Okay, all right. All right, so let's just, go to the next day and move on with our life. Okay. That's kind of just like where everything went. Um, Overall, the film was okay, but it's extremely highly predictable. And if you watched the Taken 2002 series, it honestly, it's just like a continuation off of that. Um, there are some things where I did hear some opinions about some things that was kind of trying to make a reference religious wise, where some people were like, well, is that something that has to, well, they showed something that I guess some people may have thought it had something to do with Jesus or whatever because of the way some of the technology was being displayed. But honestly, it had nothing to do with that at all, period. Like zero. Um, Look, at the end of the day, um, it's just references to the Philosopher's Stone. Okay. Um, if you're if you're a person that's dived deep into ancient or historical history, even if it's, biblical back into the days of Solomon and all that, because you still have all these religious sectors still chasing after the magic of Solomon. Nobody wants to tell you that. Nobody wants to um, come out and just like tell the truth. But at the end of the day, these temples, these domes, these rocks, whatever, they're all on these sacred sites. They're all having these wars because they're all chasing after the Solomon's magic. And if somebody can dominate all the houses and scoop up and get all of the magic, then they can have all of the power and then they can rule the world and rule humanity. But there's these stories that predate time about how everybody was, all these different civilizations were able to get a piece of this philosopher's stone so that no one civilization could ever dominate some other civilization, so that that power could be equal across, the earth plane. Um, so, but that's a really large story, but like if you had to get like the highest level explanation of it all at the end of the day, it's they're all having these wars because they're trying to get and obtain those philosopher's stone, all of that Solomon's magic, so that they can rule the earth plane at the end of the day. It doesn't matter how much technology we see, how much things we see that exist today, how many wars you see that are going on, or how many smoke screens and distractions. At the end of the day, these people are chasing after these philosopher's stones so they can get the power of Solomon and control everything and rule it at the end of the day. You know, they want to, be like ruling the hive mind at the end of the day. And, these power hungry people, that's their thing that they're chasing after at the end of the day. So it's just like, humans that, want to play God, they want to be God. And you see a clear illustration of that when somebody gets a chunk, well, actually, kind of like the US government, they get a chunk of that philosopher's stone and they're out trying to freaking, control everybody and, possess them in order to maintain control over this technology for themselves. I mean, it's the same playbook over and over and over and over again. And I was hoping to honestly see more, something actually that might be more in tune with reality. But I didn't see any of that. I just saw the same playbook being played, the same references being made, regarding the Philosopher's Stone. Um, how they're able to use the Philosopher's Stone to, take souls or to possess other people, and be like a walk in and, a stand in, a shadow somebody. I mean, it's all the same playbook at the end of the day. It is. So yeah, I wouldn't say nobody's faith is gonna be challenged. Nobody's at the end of the day gonna be like, "Oh my God, like, God doesn't exist. Oh my God, I shouldn't be Christian anymore. I shouldn't be Muslim." That film had nothing to do with any of that. It's just about people, high level. I they don't say this in the movie, but you just have to really understand everything that you're seeing and understand all of the past stuff with all of the ancient stuff. Like, you have to kinda, like, be like a almost like an ancient historian to really kinda understand these things. But, yeah, at the end of the day, it's all about, "Oh, man," somebody's chasing after they were able to find some of these philosopher's stones, you know, um there's other beings that, have this technology and this power at the end of the day. It's these philosopher's stones, and they can, if somebody's able to get their hands on one of these philosopher's stones, and they can do, basically they can, manipulate people's minds and, do things with their souls or, imprint them or whatever, man. I mean, at the end of the day, it's all the same stuff. It's all the same stuff. Nothing that has to do with creating the soul, creating the existence, lexicon, archive, of consciousness. It doesn't make any reference to any of that. It's all basically just it's a it's more or less a continuation of Taken 2002 series. Just kind of an acknowledgement that there's people in the U.S. government that's trying to prevent people from just knowing that, yeah, there's, other beings that, have these things that, you know, do allow the usage of some type of magic in some sort of a way. It's like a frequency amplifier. If you had to say it in a scientific way, it's kind of like like if you are like, electrical engineer, radio operator, whatever, like you already know how frequencies affect everything. So if you had to say it from a scientific standpoint of view, it's like these philosopher's stones are like high grade frequency emission devices where the user, if he's able to have one of these devices, he can emit these frequencies, matches frequency, carrier frequency to some other individual's frequency, and then, override them, possess them, or be like a walk into them. So, yeah. So that's just kind of like where it all is. In reality, in my travels, I've seen a lot of stuff. I didn't see anything where they illustrated anything that, in my opinion, reflected on like some real life stuff. So it's still your typical Hollywood style, whatever. But in my honest opinion, they built up all of this hype. They built up all of this stuff revolving around the disclosure because they want to get a data sample, a data set on what the human reactions are going to be, both in social media, comments, video uploads, posts, whatever. So honestly, I think it's just, people will see it, oh, it's just another thing. And, when tomorrow comes, like, it's just another day, you know? Um, I think everybody's consciousness is advanced enough that even if there's other beings or whatever, we're just gonna just look at it like this, right? Like, of course, man, there's other creations. We're not the only creation in the universe. At the end of the day, I mean, whether we see something or we don't see something, we already know there's something that's definitely more advanced than us. And, if everybody, honestly, believes in God and the supreme being, like, all of these things, then you have to automatically know that, yes, there's something that's more advanced out there, but that doesn't mean you have to keep, challenging your faith or something like that. Just stay on the course, you know, that God intended for you, because nothing is ever going to change whatever your path is, because it's already written into existence. Even me sitting here doing whatever it is that I'm doing right now, it's whatever has been written. It's like, it's a story that's already been played and it's getting played over and over and over again. And I'm probably sure that's probably why a lot of us have like deja vu and like all these weird things, or whatever. But no, it's just another repeating pattern updated with modern day times and technology. So that's all I wanted to put out there on that. Um, and as far as like a societal update on what's been going on news wise, I'm going to change gears now and talk about a different topic. Um, yeah, there's a lot of violent stuff still coming out. I don't know how all these different police departments and all these different communities and zip codes and cities are going to handle some of this, but um, I guess stay tuned for that because it seems to be gaining a lot more attention. And yeah, just be careful out there this weekend because people are just doing some strange things, and it's unfortunate that some people, they just can't see the light and they do what they do. But um, who knows? Who knows? Yeah, just it's just really unfortunate. I wish a majority of the people could just see at the end of the day that when the people, all of these news media companies, all of them, everywhere, the propaganda machine, right? The media machines, at the end of the day, they are just pumping out all of this stuff, all of the negative stuff that they can possibly pump out at the end of the day so that they can put gasoline on the fire, enrage people, and then they can sit behind a cell phone or a computer system or a TV and watch the entertainment of the people that have been affected by all of the negative propaganda from the negative propaganda machine. It's like, hey, somebody did this in the courtroom the other day. Let's go run a news story on it. Let's get 10,000 people rioting in the street, and then let's go turn on our TV and just watch all of the action unfolding. If you kind of think about the stories, right? where you get these people that say the archons like to feed off of the negative energy, right? Think about this. Think about when the media goes, they spin up one of these stories, all the rioters go out, and then you get all of those people that are just spinning up those catastrophic stories, enraging all of these people that are sitting by, you know, why don't you just look at those people as the archons, dude? Like, those people are the ones spinning up all that stuff, enraging all these people, and then those people are feeding off all of that enragement. And if you could get everybody to turn that around, that would bring a new paradigm, you know? But, at the end of the day, the only way you're going to turn that off is to shut off the propaganda machine, but good luck with that one. Um, but yeah, it's just unfortunate. It's just unfortunate. So just be careful, be safe out there. Hold the light for somebody if they need it, because everybody has a responsibility of being a beacon of light for those that are in need. So I want to wish everybody a happy Friday, Godspeed, and we'll come back with something soon. Cheers.